Hello, hello, hello. Audio check. Let's see if this is working. Hello, hello, hello. Yep, I hear myself, so that means we're working. So, yeah, I've been spending some great quality time with my brothers, with Justin, with Aaron, with Aaron's partner, Pam, and they actually went out this morning, so I just thought it would be a perfect time for connection's sake and for not bothering other people's sake to go live right now. And I miss going live, guys. My connection isn't just so great. So, but yeah, let's hop into it. So first, I realized not many people still completely understand the whole hybrid thing. So I just wanted to do a quick review on what it is we're talking about when I say, Operation Lighthouse, I want alkaline electric native foods only in these communities, and these communities rising up everywhere and organically self-sustainably sourcing themselves. Now, why is that so important? Why is it so important to safeguard the fuel of a nation, right? Why is it so important that we go in a different direction than where the matrix is taking us with all these temptations and all these foods, right? Why is it so important to, again, get a clean energy source? Because with a clean energy source, really, you have free energy, right? You don't have stiff energy. So the whole hybrid thing, there are two types of hybrids. One is okay. One is a hybrid, which is practically most of the foods we're eating, which is naturally cross-pollinated in nature. So one male plant of one species and another female plant of a different species, through insects, through birds, through wind, through whatever means the seed uses to transfer or the pollen uses to go somewhere else, creates another plant. Right? And that plant, again, God made, because the Mother Earth, decided to put two of her creations together. Now, the second type of hybrid is one where a man says, I like the look of this wild yam. I like the look of this yarrow, or whatever they call it. Put it together and you get a carrot. So this is the second type of hybrid. Now, again, the first was naturally cross-pollinated. The second was taken into a lab, put together two different substances were artificially, synthetically put together, right? And in putting these two things together, we've created a chemical structure that God did not make, right? We've created a chemical structure that is foreign, right? And while doing so, we've created starch, right? And, I would have to do more research. Perhaps there are good, quote unquote, good starches. But from what I've seen, starch is what causes diabetes. Starch is what causes brain fog. Starch is what causes mucus, right? This bad sugar or this artificial sugar is the cornerstone to all of our problems, right? Not that, for instance, you could be overeating good food too, and that's not great, right? You could be overeating alkaline food too. That's not great either. But the starch, this fake chemical structure, this godless chemical structure, that's obviously not good. So this is why I tell people, have alkaline electric foods as a minimum standard. Okay, which means we can go breatharian, right? I'm just saying, when we start the path, right, we want to cut out the foods that have poison. And so every time, what does Dr. Sebi say? I remove carbonic acid that comes from starch, And in that starch, there's glycerinic acid too. There's cyanide, and cyanide is basically the disconnect drug. It's what shuts off your brain function and your cognitive ability, right? It's what tampers with the pituitary function. All of these horrible things, right? And then we have starch, and then uric acid. So meat, blood, right? Our anatomy, we don't have long claws and nails to rip apart our prey, right? We don't have canine, right? We don't have a short intestine. Our intestine is very mediocre middle, right? Different things like this shows, anatomically speaking, at a base fundamental level, we are more primates. Now, it is true, and primates do not have fruit near them, do not have food near them, then they go and experiment with other foods. So in a natural condition, in a condition of abundance, primates are anatomically frugivores. And this is the exact same for human beings. So yeah, let's see where we're going. So we talked a little bit about hybrids. We talked about the poisons. Now let's talk about, so real nutrition and the real cure for our disease is organic foods. These are foods that have bromides, iodides, carbonates, phosphates. Okay, these are foods that are electrical. That's why it's alkaline electric, because the pH, most likely, I'm still open to the fact that some acid, starting acid foods perhaps have alkaline chemistry once digested. I'm still open to that, but generally speaking, the foods that you are supposed to be eating that you get from nature are high in pH, just like burdock, yellow dock, whatever, sea moss, all of these great, huge mineral supplements, right? That are natural, that are coming about in iontophoresis. That's another good topic to go over. These ones are electrically composed, right? These ones, the chemical structure is God. Right? Is God made. Therefore, of course, it is natural for you. Therefore, the nutrition you're going to get, you're going to receive. And at the same time, it's going to heal you. Because again, it has that high pH. And again, it's electrical. And the body is electrical. When you're eating dead food, it ain't electrical. Now, this is another thing. So yeah, I said the minimum standard should be alkaline electric foods. Now, Dr. Morse always goes into the fact that cooked food has less energy. I'm open to this, right? So basically, he says that, and it's true. He says what do you call it? Parasites, candida, any of these malignant organisms, microorganisms, they don't like it when you keep eating raw foods because they don't have anything to sustain off of. However, Dr. Morse still gives out tea. So he's still doing some form of cooking, right? Even though it's very minimal, it's kept to a minimum, right? So there's that. That raw fruit is the best thing. And so we're going to get into that topic a little bit later. We're going to get into the Garden of Eden lifestyle, right? Eating the fruit exactly when it's cosmically timed and ready and it's ripe and it's falling off the tree. I mean, that's just... There's nothing like that, right? But again, Dr. Morse talking about how we should cook less, and I agree with him, right? But Dr. Sebi also coming in and saying, if the plant you're taking, for instance, sea moss, or for instance, one of the highest iron fluorine concentrations, sarsaparilla, right? When you're taking these plants, you can burn it to an ash. Let me repeat that again. You can burn it to an ash. And it would still heal you. It would still have alkaline electric properties. And if you go into alkalinity or alkalose or all these stuff, it goes back to soda ash, right? And for me, just relating things that I've seen, ash is usually alkaline. So it's very interesting, right? So I agree. I think more and more we will be, and I'm going to start getting into this about the correct way to eat and different things like this. More and more we are going to go raw. More and more we're going to be eating less and less, right? But the point is, if you're going to cook, make sure you're cooking things that are electrical. That's it. Because if you're eating things that are not electrical, you're either not even feeding your cells and just creating extra work for the digestive system, or you're killing yourself, or you're damaging yourself. So this is the reason why it is so important that in our community, of course, in the beginning, before we have a plentiful amount of fruits, we're at least eating vegetables, grains, whatever it is, nuts that are on Dr. Sebi's list, right? And I have a bunch of herbs that are not on Dr. Sebi's list that he talked about, that are not hybrids. Because again, Dr. Moore still gives hybrids. I love the guy, okay? I love his advice. I love everything that Dr. Morse has to do, except that he, is still on the globe, Earth model, and that he is recommending these chimeras, these things. And again, so what's so bad about a chimera, a hybrid plant, is that if the DNA structure is not made by the organic original creator, is not made by God, that DNA structure will not assimilate with the body. The body will not like that DNA structure, right? It is not genetically consistent with your genetic, your predisposition. Doesn't work, doesn't jive, doesn't work together. But we're conditioned to think that certain foods that we're eating are. Right? So on my Dear Hippocrates channel, I could leave a link in the description later. I have lists of unapproved, and I have Dr. Sebi's list. But in the future, we're going to take responsibility. We stars, right? The whole community, we're going to be testing, experimenting, documenting different foods and seeing what's what for ourselves, getting the litmus paper and all of these things. Because what else is there to do? So it's these kinds of things, right? So yeah, let's get into eating correctly. So I'm speaking of this because I still am not perfect in this regard, okay? When I eat quinoa, oftentimes I indulge. And so really, we should be eating the size of our fist. And what the idea of this is, your stomach, before it expands, so let's say you eat a huge meal last night, and then this morning your stomach's cramping. It's because your stomach is has been stretched out. And so the point is, if we can keep eating not without the stomach being stretched out, that is really eating without gluttony, right? That is really eating without indulgence. That is really eating still being a little hungry. Now that's what's healthy, is still being a little hungry, not being so full to the point you hate yourself. You see what I'm saying? Because that means that the organism is not functioning optimally. So if you eat the size of your fist, right, or light foods, then there's not going to be much trouble in the digestion. And again, the most important thing to your health is correlated to how much and what you are digesting. This is why Raji says, Muhammad brings to our attention that if you're sick, you're either eating too much or you're eating the wrong thing. Yeah, it's so simple. Eating too much or eating the wrong thing. So first step, we got to eliminate the wrong things we're eating. Right? And then the second step is we got to, again, practice good habits of eating. So again, if I've been eating quinoa for a week straight, I'm not giving a chance really for my body to really, I was going to say slow down, but it's more fast, right? It's speed up, right? Because that's the thing. When we put nothing in our body, that's when our body regenerates the quickest. That's why Muhammad goes on a 2-month date and water fast. That's why Jesus goes on a 40-day, 40-night fast. That's why Buddha, Gautama, right? He does his own fast and he gets real skinny, right? So what are these things pointing to? These things are pointing to the fact that in the spiritual journey, at one point, nothing is better than all these things that we're eating, all these distractions that we're eating, right? So again, I don't want to overwhelm everyone. The minimum standard right? Your minimum wage when it comes to food, right, should be alkaline electric foods, should be as much as possible weaving out these chimeras and these hybrids and the possibility of ingesting starch, the possibility of ingesting DNA structure that is not relevant or coherent to your own anatomy. So that's a step one. So again, we've talked about how we should be eating probably the size of our fist, right? So that we can always keep our stomach somewhat hungry or somewhat still in desire, because this is the thing, we can never really quench that desire of hunger, right? It's more of a psychological thing. And that's another thing is, when you're constantly eating foods, when you're constantly digesting, what you're really doing is not letting trauma to be detoxed out, right? Because all forms of disease are really stored trauma, stored bodies of water, stored bodies of emotional pain that are stuck in different places and stored in different places of the body, right? Because we can talk about how the psychological trauma is different from the physical trauma. But again, the psychological trauma is stored where? Where is the SSD, right? Because psychologically, you can't really store much. Psychologically, really, you're dying and being reborn every second, every day. So really, the trauma is stored in the body. That's the only physical hard drive that you have, that you can have a personal trauma storage. So when we're eating too much, when we're constantly digesting, what happens is that the trauma doesn't have a chance to get out. So we're actually covering up the sins and the mistakes with overeating. If you can wrap your minds around that, right? So there's that aspect to it too, that when we are constantly overworking our body really doesn't have a chance to work on the real good processes, of itself. So there's that aspect to it too. Now, the other thing is, I was talking to one of my very close acquaintances, but essentially what you also want to be doing is giving your body, like we were just talking about with digestion, giving your body a chance to go light. Because we're all about star foods here, right? We're about star people, which means star food, which means light foods. So what are light foods? Light foods, no food at all, which is one, but really light foods are the most easy to be digested foods. So, these fruits, why are fruits so good? Well, because they assimilate fructose. Your body is literally made for fructose, right? It is the quickest thing that will assimilate into the body. That is why it is so. It is such a gracious, important tool. So it's these kinds of things. Because what's different between fructose and, let's say, rice or all these other things, right? Or a vegetable, is that it's just a little more difficult for your body to process the vegetable. And obviously your body doesn't even want to process the rice. But here, I'll cut it short today right here, because my brothers are coming back. But we'll continue this conversation in a part 2, maybe with Julia. We'll see you guys soon.